Hello, in this video I'm sharing with you these pillow covers I made for my living room couches. They're envelope pillow covers and they have a contrasting piping around the borders. I started off by purchasing fabric that was seasonal. So I started out with this floral fabric, which I felt was nice and springy and summery. And I purchased 4 yards. You have to get piping for the border of your pillow. And I purchased a contrasting fabric to go around the piping. I purchased 2 yards of that. I also purchased an 18-inch foam pillow. I preferred down, but the foam was what was available when I was at Walmart. And these are the measurements of the pieces I cut. You can adjust them to the size pillow that you are covering. So to begin with, I covered my piping. So to do that, you need to cut lengths of fabric 2 inches wide on the bias, which is the angle right here. And if you tug on your fabric from side to side, you'll notice it doesn't have give. But if you tug on your fabric at an angle like this, you'll notice it has a lot of give. And this is how you want to cut your 2-inch pieces. Once you get your pieces cut, you have to attach them. So I line up the corners and I put a pin to secure them. Then you want to take any kind of ruler or straight edge and mark from corner to corner. And use a pencil that's safe on your fabric. And then pin the other side on the opposite side of the line you just drew. This is my zipper foot on my machine. And I'm going to sew right on that line to secure those 2 pieces together. Now you can see my line here isn't very straight, but it'll do the job. So I sewed down that line, and then I can remove my pins. Now I had to sew enough of these pieces together to cover 75 inches of piping, which will go around the outside of my pillow. Once you have it sewn, you can take out the pins, open it up, and I would iron it. I iron it flat. It's easier to work with. Once you have all your pieces secured together, you can lay your piping right down the middle. I leave a little bit of room on top, and you'll see why later. Once you have it laid in, you pin it down. You pin your piping right in the middle, the whole length. When you're attaching these pieces together, you want to fold it over, secure it with a pin. So when you sew over it, it's a nice smooth edge. This is why you want to have your zipper foot on, because you can get nice and close to that piping. You can sew right up against the side of it. And you start a little bit away from that edge. I leave about 2 inches of extra fabric up there. And just do a straight stitch right up against your piping. And that's what that looks like. See, I'm sewn right up tight against my piping, and I have that extra fabric to the right. Now we're going to go to the back pieces. You have 2 pieces cut for the back because this is an envelope. It's not going to be one solid piece, so you're going to be able to take these on and off your pillow so you can wash them. So on one edge, one long 18-inch edge, I fold it over twice, about 1/4 inch, and I iron it down real good. And then I just sew a straight stitch right across. And that's going to be the edge of one of the envelope sides. And cut off your extra threads. Now back to your front piece, which is 18 inches across and 18 inches down. My pillow is 18 by 18, remember, and that's the size I cut the fabric. So with the good side facing up, I pin my piping all the way around the perimeter of this piece to the good side. And on the corners, I make these little slits so I can get around the corners easier. It opens the fabric up more. So the piping part itself is towards the inner part, and the edge is on the outer part, the looser part. There's my opening, and that's why I left a little bit of extra. You want to cut the piping so it butts up together. And then with that extra fabric, you can give it a little fold to give it a nice neat edge. Tuck your other piece in and pin that right down in there so you have a nice smooth transition for your seam. I just keep my zipper foot on my machine, I'm sorry, and I use that for the entire pillow. Now again, when you sew your piping on, you're sewing through the piping fabric and the front fabric of your pillow. You sew right up against that piping again, so you want that zipper foot on. And just take your time. The fabric wants to tend to bunch sometimes here and there, especially around the corners. So what I do is I drop my needle down, I lift my presser foot if I have to, and I turn my fabric a little bit so as to make sure it's not bunching as I go. And sometimes you might have to make a second pass around a corner, and that's okay. So once your piping is all sewed onto your front piece, you lay your envelope pieces in the back and make sure the design is heading in the direction that you're going to want it to head in. And there are those finished edges I sewed before. Now secure your fabric again with pins right up against your piping through all three pieces, the front piece, the piping piece, and the back piece. Now I usually start at the bottom, and you're going to sew right up against the piping again all the way around the perimeter of this fabric. Let your machine help you to move the fabric along. It's a little bit thicker, and if it wants to bunch, leave your needle down, pick up your presser foot, and smooth it. Once you have the entire perimeter sewed, this isn't necessary, but I like mine neat on the inside as well. You can trim off the corners of any extra fabric and threads. And when that's done, turn everything right side out. And you have a very finished looking pillow cover because you've put that piping around the edge. And it's so nice doing it this way because you can take it right off for the seasons, or you can take it off to clean it. This is a really nice quarantine project, and it gave my living room a nice update. If you like this project, please give it a thumbs up.